Afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission, Planning Commission meeting. It is Thursday, December 30th, 2021, at 4:30. First item on the agenda is the election of officers for 2022. I would like to call for nominations from the floor.
I'd like to nominate Anne to continue as chair.
I would second that, if she's willing to accept.
That's fine. And
Thank you. I've appreciated the way you've run the meetings this last year. Thank you.
thank you. Do we want to do the whole slate, or are we going for separate off?
Why don't we do the whole slate?
Okay.
Put it under one.
Should I redo my suggestion?
Pardon me?
Should I redo my nomination? So I would nominate Anne as chair, Larry to continue as vice chair, and I would continue as
Continue?
secretary.
Is there a second to that?
I would second that.
Are there any further nominations from the floor? Are there any further nominations from the floor?
No.
If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Approval of the minutes from the December 2nd meeting. Are there any changes, additions, corrections?
I'll offer a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public hearing, consider for approval the repeal of the existing Chapter 9 land use regulation zoning of the city code and the adoption of a new Appendix 8 of the city code to be known as New Ulm zoning ordinance. City?
In your agenda packet, you received a copy of the new zoning ordinance. It is being referred to as Appendix A. And it will replace, as you indicated, Chapter 9. And the title of Chapter 9 is Land Use Regulation, and then zoning follows that. The new zoning ordinance is a standalone document, and it bears little resemblance to the current layout of the zoning ordinance. And that's one of the primary reasons why it is being identified as an appendix rather than being incorporated into the current city code. The new ordinance would have 13 chapters. Those 13 chapters break down. We have an introductory chapter as number 1. Chapter 2 identifies the application process. Chapters 3 through 8 deal with land use districts. Chapter 9 deals with land use standards. Chapter 10 is development standards, and in Chapter 10 we have 12 sections. Chapter 11 is nonconformities. Chapter 12 is enforcement. And Chapter 13 is rules and definitions. And just as indicate one of the differences between the two documents, I added up the definitions in the current city code, and I came up with around 100. And in the new city code, I came up with around 450. So, that's one of the differences. We, as I indicated, utilizing a new format, and that format places a greater emphasis on graphics and tables and visual depictions. I should note that document that you received has got some depictions that will be replaced with new ones, but we have placeholders there. And I think there were some of the new ones, though, that were in the,
Yeah, in the residential district in your document that you have in front of you, we do have one of the new depictions in there. We've gotten those new depictions in now in the past couple days, and they're being inserted into the new ordinance.
and is customary with most new zoning ordinances. They tend to be larger in size than their predecessor. And we looked at the number of pages that other communities had, and we were not the highest.
Biggest.
But there are communities that have a lower number of pages. But one of the differences is that our document is heavy on tables and graphics, and consequently, when you need to have all of your tables on one page, sometimes you end up with space that you don't have anything for. And so I think that's one of the reasons that drives the number of pages that we have. We have attempted to establish what I would call a user-friendly document. Hopefully it will allow the public as well as staff, developers, builders to locate the information that they need. And hopefully we've put it in a format that allows that. We have also, though, need to maintain its legal standing. This is a legal document. And it has to be the standing that allows for our attorney to use if necessary. We've attempted to carry over as much as possible current standards, regulations from our existing code. We didn't attempt to reinvent everything. And so we kind of use that as a base to prepare the new document. We also have attempted to address zoning issues that have been that we've had to deal with for the past period of years, but also to address what we think might be issues that are going to appear in the future. And just to comment on the future, there perhaps are items in this ordinance that when you look at it, you say, well, where does that apply? Or how are we going to use that? We don't have that situation. And that is true. But we may have that situation at some point in time in the future, and then it's good to have something in place to take care of those situations. Should note that this is a document that is a work in progress. As we went through the parking section or chapter section, we found some locations where things need to be changed. And so we're kind of dealing with that issue. And John, did you have some information on that subject?
Yeah, so now that we've compiled all the different chapters into one document, I need to go through and we need to make sure all the whole document is formatted correctly. And we also are doing, like David mentioned, the insertion of all these new diagrams. So our residential districts, our commercial districts, our industrial districts will all have new diagrams in them. We also need to make sure and go through the entire document to make sure we are consistent with our regulations. So for instance, we might have a 5-foot setback that is addressed in Chapter 10, We need to make sure that is consistent with the setback for that same requirement, let's say in chapter 4, residential districts. So we need to cross-reference to make sure everything lines up correctly. You'll see in this document, we left all of the table numbers blank. We were waiting until we had a completed document, and now we can go through and start numbering all those tables. There is capitalization, grammar issues. I have some help upstairs with some other folks to address that in the very near future. And then one last thing is for the ease of readability and understanding of where you're at within this document. In the upper right-hand corner of each page, it's going to show you at which chapter section you are at, so you don't always have to flip back pages to try to understand where you're at. So that should help with readability of the document. I wanted to add one more thing to Dave's comments on the size of this document. If you look at our current chapter 9, everything is single spaced. This is double spaced. That already doubles the amount of pages you're going to have. So it's just one extra thing to take a note of, and that was the intent of that was for the readability of the user.
Yeah, I would note that, probably maybe a year ago now, we took, I think, 4 different zoning ordinances that use different formats, and we gave them to, 5 or 6 people in City Hall and just said, take a look at these, read them, couple pages, and then tell us which one you like best. And so it was interesting that we had a near consensus on which was the best one. And so what you currently see is what the consensus was of the group that took a look at that. So as I indicated, this document is a work in progress. So if this is forwarded to the city council, it should be done with a condition that the staff and city attorney are authorized to make necessary correction and amendments to the document. And it would be our intention to keep you fully informed on what those changes might be. Now, 2 other things I would like to note, and these are tasks, I guess you could call them, that the Planning Commission, the one for sure you will be involved in, and the other is optional, but something that staff would recommend. The first is that we need to redo our zoning map. So we're establishing some different zoning districts, and so we need to take a look at the entire community, and in some locations, we're going to be assigning new districts. And so, we really can't adopt the ordinance without also adopting a zoning map at the same time. So what we would propose is that staff will prepare a new zoning map, and we will present that to you at a minimum at your January meeting, but possibly we'll get something out to you, and if you would desire to hold a work session and to talk about that, we could do that, or we could, it would be necessary to conduct a public hearing then on that new zoning map at the January meeting. So that's something that we need to do. The second thing that we noticed in going through different community zoning ordinances is that many of these communities have what's called a zoning certificate or a zoning permit. But it's something that is assigned to the zoning of the property. And I think the purpose of having a permit or a certificate is to make sure that the changes that are taking place to properties complies with the zoning standards that we have. Something that we are seeing actually more frequently now is we're getting uses in locations where they shouldn't be. And so we're trying to think of ways to maybe head that off as much as possible. And so this certificate process is something that we think might help deal with at least some of that type of problem. Because we're starting to see some things taking place. And what happens in those cases then is we end up with, using a lot of staff time sometimes to try to resolve those issues. And if we could take care of it up front, then it both saves time and, doesn't, it's easier to deal with. So that's the second thing that we would like to
That I
look
would
at.
have a lot of questions about, I don't think it's a bad idea. I just need to know how you're gonna get these to people, or is it something I can come in and pick up, or am I not already reading what's in the certificate when I go through the ordinance?
Well, sometimes people will buy property and make certain assumptions.
Mhm.
And, and frequently those don't involve a telephone call to, to City Hall to ask those kind of questions. And then only to find out, I'm in an industrial district.
So are
and
you,
maybe
are you
I
assigning
can't
this
do
to the
this.
deed in abstract, or are you
But normally
assigning
that
it
type
to?
of thing isn't in abstract.
Yeah.
Nor is it something that would be in a title search or that type of
Okay.
thing.
Elwood?
Yeah.
Elwood Zabel, building official. Kind of an example is people go to the Brown County website, look up the property, and they have different zoning districts that they're listing. And recently, this past summer, we put on a disclaimer there that their districts don't represent our districts, that they need to contact the city.
Okay.
So that's one way that we're trying to head it off. But with the zoning certificate, like Dave said, they can give us a call and try to head it off before they buy the property. Like Larry and I were talking earlier, one that thought they could have an apartment there, and it's not zoned for
My question
residential
is,
use.
how does a zoning certificate if I'm going to buy this parcel down here by the railroad tracks, how do I know what certificate is attached to it when I'm
Well,
just
you'd have
looking
to-
at it?
The person would have to come in, we'd have to discuss what they're planning on doing, if it qualifies to be in that
Okay.
district, and then have something written up that, yes, this
Okay,
is
okay.
properly zoned, that you get, kind of like a business license.
So
type
you're
thing, so-
directing more people to you, which is a good thing.
Correct, yeah, we're trying,
In-
like Dave said, we're trying to head it off before somebody buys the property, finds out that they can't do what they thought they could do, and now what's our recourse?
Okay.
So Elwood, basically, a seller is coming to you and asking what can all be used to this property to write up a paper.
Either the
before
seller
he-
or the
he-
buyer is doing their due diligence beforehand to reach out and find out exactly what they can or can't do in that district. Yeah,
But if they don't call you, which seems to be the case now, there still is nothing
right.
could
We-
do
like,
about
There's people that move into town, start a business, and we don't know about it because there's nothing to bring them here. That's why we, this summer, put that disclaimer with Brown County on their
Okay.
website to try to get some of that information out there, that what it said on their website is not what can be done there, because I've seen residential areas as business areas, and it's like, well, no, that's not
Oh,
right.
sure, okay.
Elwood, is there something that we could do to educate our local realtors in some capacities that, that when they're representing a seller or a buyer, that they have a checklist that says the due diligence has been done here, so the buyer or the seller knows?
Right, I mean, with the whole new ordinance and stuff, I
That's
think
the-
we're gonna have to send out a letter to everybody, realtors and stuff, saying there's new stuff going on, you need to check with us. with the zoning thing coming in too, we could make sure that they get something on that.
Something that we also will look at, I don't know if this is possible or not, so we'll have to see. But we currently do an assessment certificate whenever property is sold. And basically what that certificate says is there any outstanding assessments against the property, how much, gives you information. And I don't know if it's possible to do, a zoning certificate, which is basically, says what the property is zoned, and then, maybe have a conversation then with the purchaser as to how the property will be used. And, and I think, we're not looking at residential. I think more so that where we see issues is with commercial and industrial properties.
Do many of these places go through realtors?
Some do, I mean.
I know I know a lot of properties that change hands just through an attorney.
Right, and that's part of the problem is we're saying, well, this is what I think you can do. And they go by that, and they're not checking to see exactly what is allowed in that district. That's where we get into those problems.
Okay.
So hopefully, with the zoning certificate, we can condense that down a little more, that it's not, it's not a big problem, but when it happens, then it's a big problem.
Yeah, okay. I'm a little gray as to how the certificate's gonna get to whoever's looking at it, but
Well, they're gonna have to reach out to us initially.
they're gonna have
or
to
If
definitely,
we're doing that assessment search, again, they're gonna have to, all we can do is say, it's zoned for this. They're gonna have to tell us what they're planning on doing.
okay.
That's where it really comes down to, and sometimes that's
So
tough
basically
because
it's-
they don't wanna tell you what they're doing because,
They don't want,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at what other communities are doing. Like I said, we found this type of reference to this type of document in a number of zoning ordinances, and so we'll take a look at how they implement it, how they use it, and let you know about that in a future meeting.
So do you want to discuss the options that you threw out? Like, do people want, does anyone here want to have a planning or you want to wait until your office is ready to set out one of the the doodle, whatever?
Okay, so if we're talking about the zoning map,
Yeah.
that would be up to you how you would like to handle it. It's just that both of these documents should be approved by the city council at the same time.
At the January meeting,
Well, at a minimum, at the January meeting, I guess we'd like to.
and it could be the end of the month. You're not talking about the meeting next week.
No.
Okay.
But it might be that, I don't know, we may want to have a work session just to review what staff is looking at, and then you can offer some comments and thoughts, or we can try to get this out to you as early as possible, and you can
Just
then maybe react at the meeting. I guess it's, we'll take the path, I guess, that you think works best for you.
well, then I think I'm just going to poll the commissioners and just see what their opinion is, and
That would be fine.
open the floor for comments.
I think we should probably get together and have a work session if we need to get it approved. At the same time, I think that's a good idea.
I would concur.
That makes sense.
I would concur also.
Yeah, gives us the opportunity to ask some questions and
Yeah.
get some feedback, immediate feedback. I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Do
Well,
you,
we've got a little bit of work to do, to start with, so,
can we expect then John will send out
yeah.
his little thing and we all check the boxes? Whatever, doodle, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll probably be more towards the end of the month than towards the beginning.
Okay. Okay. And you don't need an opinion, or can we decide at that time about the the zoning?
I don't know if we'll have anything available at that
At that
time
time.
yet, but I expect in the next couple months that we would be able to get to that.
And as far as the city zoning ordinance, I'm expecting that you want an approval for that or disapproval for that at this meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay. So that comes to the New Ulm, the City of New Ulm zoning ordinance section that we have been working on. Are there any further questions, comments, and motions as to what we do with this ordinance to move it forward to the city council?
I guess my question for staff is, so your intention is that this gets to the, I'm assuming to the second meeting in January, to the council?
No, it would be to get it to the first meeting in January.
Okay. And then, upon that, the council will accept it or deny it, and then
Well, there's no time frame.
no time frame?
Yeah, so the council could receive it, could review it, could elect, I don't know, the review process is up to the council as to how you want to, adoption of an ordinance takes, two considerations, so that's two separate meetings, so.
So it, like you're saying, so it could be possible that we could accept the report, and maybe for the second meeting, we might be able to accept it, the report with the zoning map possibly at the council.
Not at the January meeting.
Okay.
I would say probably at the first meeting in February.
So if we had
But
to,
depending upon the timing of the first and second consideration, the second consideration and the map should go together at
together,
that time.
so that could be in February then.
It could be in February, yeah.
And
Could be the
then-
first meeting, could be the second.
And
meeting.
then upon the council accepting that under our resolution, then it would take to be an ordinance, it would be effective immediately for the public would know this, or is it?
It would be effective 30 days after publication in the newspaper.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the city? Any questions concerning the ordinance?
I've got nothing further. I mean, we've covered a lot of information in
been
the
a
last
huge-
2 months, I'm gonna say. So I just want to thank everybody for trying to do the extra work. So,
Yeah, I mean, we've put in a fair amount of time with this. I can't imagine what the city staff has been going through. I feel like you should have a whole new little batch of gremlins sitting there just putting page numbers on stuff. It's intense.
Well, I think I can assure you that in, 9 months, in a year, there'll be a whole bunch of revisions to the zoning
I'm sure there
ordinance.
will be. I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be.
I do think it's a much more user-friendly document.
Yeah.
From the ordinance before, which is just, like you said, page after page of narrative with no page breaks. It's very difficult to find what you're looking for, and I think you've created something that is hopefully much more usable for the community. I'd be interested to see what you get for feedback as people start to work with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I have a motion then to move the document forward?
I would move for approval of the new City of New Ulm zoning ordinance.
second,
There's been a motion and a second to approve the New Ulm zoning ordinance. Are there any further questions,
Do we need to close the public hearing?
Yes, we need to close the public hearing. I'm sorry, thank
I
you.
just-
Yes.
Could we, does your motion second include the condition about the, that staff
map?
and city attorney are authorized to make necessary corrections and amendments?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to reports. City council decisions concerning the planning commission.
Okay. At the city council's December 7th meeting, they conducted a public hearing on the plat of Oakwood Heights 4th subdivision. And that property is located outside the city limits. And the address is 1605 or 032 and 16052 Oakwood Heights Road. And the council approved that with conditions. To date, the applicant has not addressed any of the conditions, so I don't know what the status of things is at the present time. Council also approved a conditional use permit to Kathleen Becker to allow a location of a residential unit in a downtown B2 zoning district. And that was with 3 conditions, and the address of that that the permit is assigned to is 125 South Broadway. Then on a different matter, not zoning related, they awarded a engineering contract to Bolton and Mink for improvements to 20th South Street. And I think this is a complete reconstruction, and I believe it's scheduled out at 2 years. I think they're using federal funding for it, and there are a lot of requirements that they have to comply with.
20th South, is that that's the
The bridge,
bridge, okay.
IV. So it would be from that intersection of Broadway all the way to the river, is my understanding.
So it's from high V all the way, oh, that's quite a project.
Yeah, it will be. At the City Council's December 21st meeting, they approved the budget for 2022. They reduced the number of members on the Park and Recreation Commission from 9 to 7. And then they sent out a request for legal services for the city. Roger Hippert is done, shortly. And the firm of Beth and Barron's has submitted a letter that they will no longer serve as a city attorney at the end of a 1-year term, and I think that 1-year term is November of 2022. But they said if the city can make different arrangements that sooner, that they would be, I think, agreeable to making that transition sooner. And so proposals have been sent out, both to, I guess, local firms as well as area firms, and then I assume they're advertising it in appropriate locations. So that's a change that'll be taking place. I think we anticipate working with Roger, though, more or less, at least on the things that we do, until such a time as that transition takes place. At least hope so. That's it.
Heritage preservation.
We had 2 items come forward, the Foster White Insurance Agency approval of sign, and then Sue Rothmeyer and Storefront Realty business and changing the color of the awning. Those both were approved.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the commission? If not, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.